Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, it's about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Sinner. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we have Leela and Harry talking, because Leela wants to know, it's like straight up, could it be possible that someone else did this? Like, or at first she's kind of suggesting maybe it was an accident, but then Harry's like, there were multiple blows. There were several blows to his body and his head. This was no accident. It's like, but maybe someone else did it. But it's like, Harry knows Jamie did it, and now for her it's this conflict of thinking like the man who could potentially do this and the man that she loved, they can't possibly be the same person, because for her it's like, Jamie's never gotten angry in his entire life, because what does Jamie do? He's very like, what would be the word? He's very I guess critical would be the word. It's not the word I'm looking for, but he essentially he shits on himself a lot. The word I'm thinking of is on the tip of my tongue, but essentially means that. But basically, like, Jamie always blames himself, and we kind of find out finally, because last episode got brought up a lot. He's like, oh, you know what happened 2 years ago? Despite all that, I stood by you. And it's like, we find out what it was. Leela had an affair, and the fact of the matter is, Jamie, rather than, he asked what did he do wrong, that basically Jamie always internalizes a lot of stuff and say like, oh, if anything's wrong, it's my fault. So that was kind of an interesting perspective to kind of get on Jamie. And then it's interesting to kind of tie that all together. We do, like, throughout the episode, we see flashbacks of where, Jamie in college, in fact, how him and Nick met. They had the whole class about, that class where they were talking about God and everything. And obviously Jamie was talking about, maybe if two people come together, it's like, because the whole conversation was like, oh, so you're saying that two people coming together makes God. But then it turns into a thing of like, God is kind of like this almighty being, that it can't just be something like that. But then Nick kind of contorted like, or are you saying that God create a rock that he can't lift? And it's like, okay, but that leads into a complicated conundrum, because if God can create a rock that he can't lift, that means he's not all powerful. But if it becomes a thing of he can't create something that he can't lift, then it also shows you that he's not all powerful, showing that basically God's perception of being this all powerful being is something that man created. So it kind of ties into what Jamie was saying about like God, kind of this God energy or being in existence, in its essence, being something that is kind of man connected. It was actually a very interesting perspective of the whole situation, and actually, Jamie and Nick bonded over that. Because we actually learned a little bit from Leela about his mom. Like, she died apparently when he was 12. Him and his dad don't really have a good relationship. His dad wasn't really in his life coach. When we hear from Jamie at college, it's like, oh yeah, his dad ended up getting remarried to his stepmom, which we don't know where that lane of things ended up going. But regardless. And Nick talks about the fact is, like, he kind of comes from a similar situation, even with his mom and dad still around. His dad didn't really do much, being there for, him. And it's like, and my mom's still around cooking for him and everything, so. But then we got the insight into that whole thing of like, we got the spark of the Ubermensch situation. Even like that point of them jumping off the bridge, that was kind of like the first instance of them kind of pushing fear aside. And the fact of the matter is, it's like, all right, let fate decide our fate. And, we jumped. Nick jumped, but Jamie couldn't bring himself to do it. And so it was like, and Nick wasn't pissed at him. It's like, fear, it's okay. We signed a contract the moment we were born to be afraid. And once again, it's that very existential, once again, we kind of brought up this whole, perspective earlier in the season, which is very existential and stuff like that. Basically, borderlining saying that basically, we were born to be afraid because life kind of puts this perspective out there that we're safe, but literally at any point in time, we could die from anything. So basically the world isn't as safe as it kind of pretends to be. So it's kind of like, if we want to move past, we got to move past that fear, because that's the only way to really live. Because any other form of living is just us like going through these pretenses, keeping this delusion of living alive, because it's like this delusion that like, oh, life is safe and everything, that, we can live a long, healthy life. But in actuality, like I said, anything could happen at any point in time. Like I said, it's really heady when you actually kind of think about it. But when that was all said and done, Nick and Jamie did it again, this time in the dark. But Jamie did it because, like, Jamie kept being like, why do you want me to do it? Why are you even here? Why don't you just do it? Because he was like, don't you realize, Jamie, the reason why I was able to do it is because you were by my side. And the fact of the matter is, so I'm going to, return the favor for you. It's actually interesting. I should also talk about that. The casting on like younger Jamie and Nick is crazy. Like, especially like I don't know whether they did something makeup wise, but the actor, even the way he talks, is mimicking the actor who plays Nick. So it was just kind of interesting. Like and even the actor who plays Jamie, you can definitely see the resemblance. It's like, I mean, that's the whole point. You have like a makeup team and stuff like that to probably help stylists and stuff like that to make it seamless in believing like, oh, these are the same people, just ages apart. Like these kids grew up to be these adults. So it just kind of fits. Like, I just think it's kind of interesting. But how that all ties in, because basically in this episode, Jamie is seriously spiraling. He's talking to Leela. He's trying to get her, to talk to him. At one point, he ends up, finding out that Harry and Sonia are a thing. But that is interesting. Like, Harry's not trying to talk about Jamie, but Sonia's all about talking about Jamie. She's like, oh, I got to get Jamie out of my head. Then Jamie sees this. He goes over to Sonia's place, and then she's looking at him on the camera, and I'm like, is she not going to do anything about it? I didn't see her grab the phone a minute, and that's why I was like, there's something about Sonia I just don't get. But then, like, Jamie walks in, and she's like, she's got the gun on him and everything. It's like, oh, you're going to use that against me? He's like, the fact of the matter is, not only are you stalking my wife, you're also banging the detective that's trying to arrest me. And it turns into this whole thing of like, he sees the photos and it's like, wait, you've been following me and stuff? And for her, it's like, because in this whole thing of life, we're all trying to understand ourselves, move past our fear and kind of see ourselves, or rather we want to be seen. And so for Sonia, I think there's something about her being like, there's a drive she has to see people for who they are. And I guess for Jamie, that understanding, that need to kind of seek the truth, I guess he can kind of understand, because he wanted to move past his fear to be able to see everything, stare into the abyss so you can kind of really see past this delusion that is life and kind of see things for what they really are. And I think as someone like Sonia who wants to see that, I think Jamie kind of finds some kinship in that. So that she drops the gun and everything. They just have conversations, and she takes pictures of him, tells him to strip down, asking, can I get closer? She gets closer, and it's like, look at me. And she takes pictures of him, and I'm like, okay. And it's like, are you going to tell Harry about this? She's like, no, because this is between you and me. I guess it's kind of that artist thing of like, this is my lens and you are my muse in this moment. I'm trying to see the truth. That has nothing to do with Harry's case. This is just between you and me. But even later on, because Harry's trying to put it together, because he's like, it doesn't make any sense, like, why Jamie would do what he do. Killing Nick, okay, it makes some sense just because it's like, well, this is someone you had a connection to, but then you kill someone you randomly have no connection to, and he's trying to figure out what the triggers were that set both incidents off. But then obviously, Sonia brings up a good point of like, well, what if, and it kind of ties into another show that exists called A Million Little Things, that basically she's saying, what if it's not just one trigger? What if it's a life of a million little things, like a life of a million little cuts that kind of build up into making the person who they are? It's just like, Jamie just wants to be seen, and Harry like, why would you even say that? She's like, and kind of moves past that really quickly. So it's like, yeah, because you don't want Harry to, because I think maybe she's afraid that if she lets Harry know that, because she doesn't even want Harry to look at her, like see her. I mean, they want to be seen maybe, but she's afraid Harry won't really look at her, because it seems like she's trying to like, because we see it with her doing it with Jamie, but she definitely does it with Harry, where she was like, oh, like the moment she brings up the conversation to Jamie and she's like, oh, look at you deflecting, because Harry quickly changed the subject. So it's like, I think she's trying to do the same thing with Harry, trying to see him for who he really is too. So there's that. Then there's the whole Leela and Jamie situation, where Leela ends up, asking Jamie, it's like, I need to know, did you actually, well, because she's trying to understand first and foremost, like, what this was all about, because for her, this came out of nowhere. Jamie was always this person who was never got angry about anything, and she's trying to understand this. And for Jamie, it's like, he's always felt like this. Nick just gave him the words to find out, gave him a words to kind of describe what he was feeling, and that's basically his belief that people are living life wrong. They're perpetuating this falsehood that that this is what life is, and that delusion once again. And once again, because of this whole heady concept to it, it kind of makes me think of Legion, in particular Legion season 2. So I know if you've never seen Legion, you need to change that. It's a really good superhero show, because it doesn't really feel like a superhero show. It's but it just, season 2 kind of deals with delusions and stuff like that. So it just kind of like, it's very heady in my opinion, and that's what it just kind of makes me think of. But then, like, Leela's like, oh, so does that mean even with me you felt like that, And so she asked him straight up, did you kill that dude? And it's like, if there's any semblance of what we have, like, what are we going to do in the future? I need to know the truth. And he admits, I did. And part of me was wondering, like, I don't think she's wearing a wire or anything like that. She just needed to know for her own sanity. And it's like, why? And it's because in Jamie's mind, it's like, no, he was helping me. But then she's like, then why'd you kill him? Because at the last second, he betrayed Jamie. Because he was helping Jamie climb that ladder. But whatever it is that he was tuning into, he was like, no, I'm not going to help you anymore. In that moment, it felt like for Jamie, it was like, no, you're betraying me. Which later on makes me worry the same thing about Leela. Because Leela turns her back on him at that moment. And later on when Jamie shows up just all casual and stuff. And it's like, oh, babe, I'm here. What? Oh, they're making a donation of this. And it's like, oh, no. I'll because it's like a almost like an auction thing that she's a part of or whatever. And he's trying to up the price and everything like that. She's like, I asked you not to come here. But he's like, no, I wanted to be here for you and everything. For her, it's a situation of the entire place is staring. He's like, no, this is a small town. Let them, talk about these small town rumors and stuff like that. But it's just like Jamie's almost like so unaware of what's going on. To the point he causes a scene. Leela's bestie comes over to kind of break things up, and obviously it just pisses Jamie off even more because like I'm just trying to talk to my wife. You need to get the fuck out of my face type of situation. Stuff starts happening. People start noticing. Home dude who's there, detective dude is there, so he ends up pulling him aside, which is so interesting because he kind of to a certain extent. In Harry's mind, it's like, oh, you betrayed me, Harry. Harry's like, you betrayed me because you went behind my back. But for him, it's like, I'm trying to help you. You literally dug yourself so deep in this Jamie situation that you haven't seen the horizon. You haven't seen the sunset. You haven't seen the sunrise. So it's like, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you out in your career, which we'll get to all the complicated stuff that's going on in Harry's life in a second. But detective dude kind of drags him out and it's like, well, he's causing a disturbance, but he's not doing anything illegal. He might be Jamie might be like yelling, talking shit, but that's about it. So he's just like, just go home unless you want me to arrest you. But then he overhears Jamie just full of rage, slamming a chair and just kind of, and he's just like, whoa. And that in his mind sets him up to be like, oh, we do need to keep an eye on this dude because he could literally, because it turns out home dude went to, he spent like 2 tours in Iraq, and for him, or I think he said 2 or 3 and tours in Iraq, and basically he's like, Jamie doesn't have faith, which we kind of see that to a certain extent. Once again, it kind of ties into the whole Ubermensch situation, but for Jamie, he doesn't have faith, and for him it's like, I know what it's like to stare off into that abyss, but like at least for detective dude, it's like he had faith to kind of pull him back. Jamie's kind of out there without a lifeline type of situation, so that's kind of what that's set up to be, so there's that situation. But that's what I was talking about too. Like that's why I feel like Leela kind of betrayed him, like he had kind of said before why he killed home dude. So that's why I'm like, that doesn't look, I don't, because once again, the whole thing Nick was telling him is like, don't believe, like, oh, you're married, like none of that matters. So that's what kind of makes me feel like it's going to feed into that. We'll ultimately have to see. But even to the one point we see Leela going through the trash, like, taking out the trash and stuff like that, dumping it out, and she finds like a bloody like bandage or something or tissue, and it's like she puts it in a Ziploc bag because I think for her, she hasn't 100% decided what she's going to do. She now knows Jamie did do it. So the question is, are you willing to put him in the jail? Is it because you still love him and you want him to get the help he needs? Because even he was like, no, I'm gonna get help and everything, saying what he needed to kind of get her more on his side, try to be there. Like he's still, and we'll get to that later on, even showing up at school, trying to be there for his students and everything, which his boss is like, I sent you an email, and he's like, oh, I must admit, she's like, actually get the hell out of here because everything is going on. But then like Emma passes out because apparently she took a whole bunch of Adderall and she kind of has a seizure. And the fact is, Jamie blames himself once again, kind of going back to that of like, for him beating himself up and being like, I'm sorry, I should have been there for you. We should have all been there for each other. But, this is kind of like the first step. We have to keep going forward. Her mom gets there kind of being like, you need to leave. But Emma's like, he's just trying to help. He's like, no, I get it. And I'm going to leave. It's like, well, your daughter's kind of in a position because you kind of push her so much. I mean, that's a sad situation to kind of get ahead. People feel the need to like, I got to hit that Adderall, got to stay out, got to study. If it means getting these good jobs, getting into the good schools, getting a good job, having a successful life and stuff like that, is, which kind of goes against what, because obviously Jamie kind of bounced back and forth because, well, I'll go ahead and talk about it, and I think it's actually interesting. For Jamie, he ended up talking about this with Harry, but the fact is he was like, that he's going backwards. What's going on with him? He is afraid a little bit, and so he's so afraid that he's trying to go backwards. Like he's trying to he's molded in almost. It's like a butterfly trying to go back to being a caterpillar. It's kind of how he's looking at it. Not probably the correct metaphor, but kind of the same lines. Analogy wise, but it's for him. It's like I'm trying to fit back into this mold of who I was before, but there's no going back for me. Like that's what this all was about. The whole thing at school, holding on to that job, trying to get back with Leela. He's trying to fit back into this mold of who he was before as Jamie, but rather than embracing and stepping forward as who he's becoming now. So that was the whole aspect of it, and I think that kind of all ends up tying together like that, which I think is kind of interesting. But another lane to this is kind of what I brought up last episode about the whole thing about Harry and his grandson, and it's like, oh, his daughter is super not happy about that because it's like, I thought that was your friend and everything. It's like, no, it's something connected to the case and stuff like that. It's like, but you punched him in the stomach. It's like, did he do something? He's like, no. But it's just like, for her, it's a situation of like, Eli's been acting up. He's been mimicking what you did. He's so impressionable. I don't think it's like, no, let me talk to him and we'll kind of set him straight. It's like, I don't think you should be around each other because he's so impressionable. And the fact of the matter is, he's like, well, okay. And what about Thanksgiving? And she's like, we're going to spend it with Mom. And that's the thing about Harry. Harry just goes, okay. The thing is, like, and I think that's the point Jamie was making last episode. Oh, there's Harry. Much like Jamie, who went so much of his life not getting angry, so does Harry. Like, Harry just kind of keeps it bottled up. Once again, that was something that happened last season with Vera. Like, there's a deep-seated anger there that he just keeps buried, And I think, even in that moment, he had the right to be angry because it's like, whoa, you're telling me I can't see my grandson and all this stuff. Oh, you're going to go spend Thanksgiving and stuff. Because once again, this is my opinion. I could be like I've said this at the beginning of the season. I've said it anytime his daughter came up in conversation. I kind of feel like his daughter's looking for any excuse not to be. Like, I think she has some resentment of her own that she's holding against her dad. And she keeps trying to give him a chance. But anytime he slips off even the slightest bit, she wants to jump on it. So it's just like, I think she feels like her dad effed up when it came to her, and she doesn't want to take the chances he'll F up when it comes to her son. That's what I'm thinking, because I think she probably looks at her dad as like, he's abnormal, he's a little weird, and I don't want that rubbing off on my son. That's kind of been my feeling the entire time, that she's just looking for an excuse for any reason to kind of back away and not just have her son around her father. That, like I said, I could be wrong, but that's the feeling I've constantly gotten. But the fact is, and Harry just kind of taking it and just been like, okay. So there's that whole, situation. And then finally we have that aspect of the episode where Jamie is talking to Harry about like him wanting Harry to come, like I brought up earlier, kind of see life for what it really is. Basically showing him the whole situation, between him and Nick. It seems like Jamie has more so found his footing in that Nick position than rather than being the Jamie position he was in before. It's like almost like whatever position Nick was in before, it seems like he's kind of stepped into that. Because once again, Nick has kind of already been in his head, and it seems like he's kind of going down more that route with this Harry situation. So he goes out to the hole and everything, and it's kind of what I thought before. The whole thing was bearing, not just one each, but I knew that's what the tubing was about and everything. It's about burying each other. Like maybe 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 is kind of best. Or no, it was 10, but the point still remains of like, it's basically you're not supposed to know how much time you really have, because the whole point is to bring you close to death. When you're close to death, you're able to step into the abyss, and basically it's almost like an out-of-body experience where like, oh, you look in the grand scheme of things and see life for what it is, the delusion, the fakeness that life is, and your eyes will finally be open. And that's what he wants. It's a situation of let's see each other, and it's like he wants Harry to kind of open his eyes, and he wants to be there, like for us to both lock eyes after your eyes are open, and for us to both be able to finally see each other, to see this falsehood that life is, and kind of see things for what they really are. Maybe Sonya's eyes are open in some shape or form. I'm so curious to kind of tie that into, be like, what the hell was that? Was there more to that we didn't get to see? The fact that, like I said, I've been suspicious of Sonya for a while. It's just like every time Sonya pops up, she gets more and more suspicious. And now it's just kind of like, I don't know. But the fact is that, it's about, like, even to the point, Jamie's like, here's a confession. The fact of the matter is, if something happens to you, your colleagues will find your body and they'll take that confession and it'll be enough to arrest me. But I, at the end of the day, believe once you come out of that hole, you're not going to care. Like, you'll realize that my confession, it doesn't matter. Nothing in that point. Like, it's kind of like this. What was the whole thing of, like, was it Nietzsche? Like, the whole perspective they have is almost like this nihilistic point of view of just kind of like nothing matters because it's all bullshit. Like, that's why I'm like the heady existentialness of it all. So it's kind of a thing of like, all right, who's going to go in the hole? And Harry's trying to. I kind of had a feeling like. I was actually surprised because there was also part of me that was almost expecting Harry to volunteer to go first. Of like, you bury me. Like, I thought that turned out not to be the case. It did come down to like a heads or tails, but it's like the whole point is like, oh, fate will be the deciding factor. So Jamie proceeds to bury Harry. Harry tries to pull out his phone, probably trying to come up with something last second, but it's like no service, so no coming through with that. Because Harry had told home dude, like, hey, if I don't show up in the morning, come track me down. He's like, you sure don't want me to go before then? He's like, no, I'll be fine, ironically enough. But the thing is, Jamie pulls out the hose at the last second, so now he's there because the whole point is the point is you don't want to have a lifeline because if you make it doesn't put you closer to the edge if you actually have a lifeline of like opportunity to breathe. It's like you need to be panicked because the whole point is to move past your fear. And once you're kind of on that tipping scale, once you come back, you'll be completely removed from the fear and everything. You'll kind of almost be your truest self to a certain extent. Once again, this is all being the Ubermensch kind of being this superhuman, kind of almost godlike that, which kind of ties back to the whole thing of like, two people coming together being kind of creating that whole spiel that, Jamie was bringing up earlier in the episode, when we were flashing back to his younger days in college. So that in its entirety is a lot to digest of like, holy crap, okay. So where the hell is this going to take us going forward into the next episode? That's the $1 million question. I doubt Jamie's going to leave Harry in there because I think because even Jamie was like, I'm not going to let you die because that would defeat the whole point. The point is I want you to open your eyes for the first time, really see things for what they really are. So, and I'm curious, when it is all said and done, what is Harry going to be like after his experience? Like, I mean, this season keeps taking turns of like, because at least everything before now, it seemed like Harry kind of had things under control. Like, this is the most out of control things have kind of been for Harry. I mean, granted, he's had moments in the Cora case, in the Julian case, but this is the most different season structure wise than the other seasons. Like I said, I brought up last episode, there's similarities, but this is so vastly different, and I'm so curious to see like what the actual outcome is, because it's not even a situation of, oh, they're locked up in jail, Harry's trying to figure everything out, help them unravel the truth and stuff like that. I mean, there's probably going to be an element to that, but it's just like, once again, Jamie's not been locked up this entire time. At least Cora was in jail the entire time. Julian was kind of like in jail to a certain extent, and it was it was just like, it was kind of purely, it was pretty known early on that he was kind of guilty and stuff like that, but it's just like Jamie's kind of been walking about free, and just everything kind of ends up getting worse and worse for Jamie because he is out and about and free, and just everything with Nick, and it's just like, I'm wondering, is this even going to have like a silver lining of a happy ending? Cora's had a silver lining of a happy ending, Julian's did too, but it's like, what the hell is going to happen with Jamie's? I kind of get the feeling like when this is all said and done, I don't think Jamie's going to live at the end of the season. Either he's going to kill himself, ended up, not on purpose, but it's like, oh, I'm not going to be afraid, and ends up putting himself in a position where he dies. I don't know what to really expect. I'm really curious to see kind of how this is all going to play out. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.